Welcome to You and Your Pets. I'm Jim Horton, and we're here with our resident expert, Dr. Ernest Rogers of the Maplewood Animal Hospital. And on this program, we discuss all things related to pets. In this particular show, we'd like to deal with feral cats and adoption. And why the feral cat issue, Dr. Rogers?
Well, within the recent past several months, excuse me, I've been approached by several people for hoarding situations. Hoarding is a situation where a person, usually an individual, takes in cats or dogs or ferrets or some other animal, and over a period of time finds that they're slowly overwhelmed by cats. These cats often are not very friendly because they don't get the attention that individual pet cats get. And so in that respect, they are feral. In another respect, they usually live under one house and they multiply. And quite frankly, that's how the owner gets an out of control situation. In this case, it was, I'm suspecting 60 to 100 cats total in the house.
Oh my heavens. That's a health issue.
Well, it does become a health issue. It's obviously an issue for the animal itself, because if you're not getting the attention, if you're not being socialized, if you're not getting the needed human interaction, you're not going to trust people. And even though a lot of these cats I have worked with, it doesn't seem as though right now that we do have that ability to work with these cats. Are too far gone, so to speak. So in terms of these cats, the house was, and I was thinking about bringing pictures, but I thought it best not to. This house had feces on the doors, feces all throughout the house. The cats had urinated throughout the house. There was basically unhealthy conditions, poor housekeeping, let's put it that way, for these cats. That's not to say that the cats were doing just fine. They weren't having health problems, but there were health problems for the humans in that house, or there could have been health problems for the humans in that house.
So when you have a hoarding issue with feral cats, who comes in? Who intervenes in that case?
Well, usually people don't make too much of a big deal about it. In many cases, I've seen neighbors complain, depending on how close the houses are. Often the neighbor complains of a urine smell emanating from the house in which all the cats are living. There can also be a fecal smell emanating from that. In the cases where the hoarding individual has some cats inside and some cats outside, the neighbors will complain about all the songbirds are missing because they're being attacked and eaten. Mm-hmm. Feral cats outside present a real challenge to wildlife. And even though some cats will get killed through an attrition, through wild animals, through being hit by a car, many of them will kill the wildlife and the indigenous species around the house. And so often it's a neighbor that complains. The neighbor says, "Oh, it smells horrible. You got to go find out what's going on." They might sneak up, look in the window, and see 30 cats. And so a lot of times that's what happens. The neighbor complains, and often the question might next be, who do they complain to? Well, certainly people complain to the health board of the town. In doing that, that triggers an animal control officer to come out and investigate. And based on what he or she sees, they may then pursue charges. Another method of eliciting an investigation would be to go directly to the New Jersey State SPCA, a member of which I was up until December 2014. I was their forensic veterinarian. And in that case, when I was working with them, that would trigger an investigation. And at that point, I may or may not be called in. The investigating officer would go in and usually on a search warrant and see what's going on and make a determination whether this is a hoarding situation or not. So the way it is usually brought to attention, the neighbors.
Okay. So how is a hoarding situation controlled ultimately? What do you do?
Well, that's a very difficult question. Having too many cats is not necessarily a hoarding situation. Having too many cats that are not spayed and neutered is definitely a hoarding situation. One of the things that towns have failed to recognize is that it's very easy for one cat in one season to have 6 babies. So you can imagine if one female has 6 babies and 2 litters, 3 in each litter, you can very quickly get out of control with unspayed, unneutered animals. And so the control at that point is by taking these animals, and often you're spaying them and they're already pregnant, so you're doing basically an abortion. The ones that are salvageable in terms of being able to work with people or have a home, they are often adopted out. And the kittens usually can be taken away, and they can be given enough socialization that they work well as pets. The adults sometimes are more difficult, and in that case, often the town or the animal control officer will decide that these animals have to be euthanized. And in the last case, 30 were euthanized.
Oh my.
Which is just a horrendous loss of life. Although there aren't too many other ways of controlling these populations when they're that large.
Mm-hmm. That's really sad sounding to have to euthanize that many.
It is, but in recognition that hoarders are recognized as being having a psychological or psychiatric illness. And this illness is related to hoarding or obsessive compulsive disorder, which is seen in people who like to save magazines, and you go into their house and they'll have stacks and stacks and stacks of magazines. You'll see people who hoard many things. Hoarders, especially animal hoarders, tend to hoard animals, yes. They might hoard multiple species of animals, but they also hoard paper, they hoard clothing, they will hoard anything. And so you'll walk into their house and their house would be a total chaotic situation with excess of everything. I've seen cases where food was being hoarded. And so in this case, we can also have health issues. And one of the health issues for the humans, obviously roundworm, hookworm, and tapeworm, the three common intestinal parasites. Mm-hmm. When you have that much feces in the house, spread around the house, it can be spread not only to all the animals, but it can also be spread to the humans, which in an adult human might only cause diarrhea, but still it's a concern. It's a zoonotic disease, mm-hmm. or a disease that can be spread from animals to humans. Toxoplasmosis is another disease, and that's been known to be associated in humans with psychiatric illness. We see a number of diseases such as ringworm, which can be spread to humans, and humans get the little classic circular lesion. Mm-hmm. In the case of hoarding that I was just recently involved with, it turns out that these animals were perfectly healthy. I found no indication of any kind of disease. However, the animals were not spayed and neutered, and so they were multiplying at an excessive rate.
Okay. Concerning feral cats, how is it different from just a boarding situation?
Well, the hoarding situation is one in which people maintain the cats as best they can. Some of these cats may well be feral. In other words, they aren't going to address issues that humans, or they aren't going to be able to be manipulated by humans, pet by humans. A lot of them are aggressive. Many people refer to feral cats as those in the environment. They may or may not be fed by someone. They may or may not be owned by someone. They could be released cats, and they breed on their own, often in colonies. These colonies tend to maintain themselves because the males, with their male hormones, tend to say, this is my territory, I'm going to fight anyone that comes in. The females tend to stay with the males because the males protect them as their little harem, but also the females, when they come in season, want to be bred, and so often they will stay around a male. One of the ways that we see these feral populations growing is because they have unregulated breeding. And that, just like the hoarding situation, the outside feral cat situation is very similar.
So how do you find feral cats, particularly when they try to be oblivious in the environment or sort of meld in?
Right.
What does an animal control have to do to capture them and to do the spaying and neutering?
Or euthanasia, unfortunately.
Or euthanasia.
In a hoarding situation, usually traps are set in the house, the animals are caught. Often I've used just fishing nets, the way you would catch a fish when you're fishing. Mm-hmm. Use that to capture them in the house. Often the house is a limiting factor, so you can usually catch them in the house using that and then put them in cage and take them to wherever you're going to take them. In a feral situation, it's much different. Often what we do is we have a heart traps where the animals are lured in either by food or cat food or by tuna, fish, or some other food. And when they get in, the gate goes down and you've trapped them.
Right.
Outside that works. Many cats are very smart and are able to go into the trap, keep their foot or their leg far enough back so that the gate won't come down. They get the food and then they get out. So we do have some pretty sharp cats, and some of them have been trapped and recognize the trap and will not go in that trap again. So trapping them is a very difficult situation in a feral situation.
All right. So going back to the hoarding, what can a town do to help with a hoarding situation in general? I mean, obviously, that if the town were cognizant of it, they'd do something. But as you say, in most cases, they're not. Isn't that?
Well, a lot of times they aren't. But I think towns have to, and many towns have not yet, passed an ordinance relating to the number of cats any individual may have. You can't say, oh, just have as many cats as you want, because that's fine. In some cases, you're going to have people with 7, 8, 10, 12 cats that are well cared for, that are neutered, spayed, and that are not an issue for that owner, because the owner has the resources with which to take care of those cats. But once you fail to have a limit on the number of cats, it becomes very, very difficult to enforce anything. Someone has 10 cats. Well, 10 cats, especially if several are not spayed and neutered, will soon be 20 cats. And if there's no limit on what can be put in or what an owner can have, then it's very difficult to control that situation until it's completely out of control. So the bottom line here is cities and municipalities have to have limits on ownership of cats. It's recommended that all cats be spayed, neutered. I would like to see every single pet get a microchip so that they can be identified, so we aren't picking up cats that aren't identified. And then certainly putting tattoos on the female cats so that we know they're spayed. Males, you can tell.
Okay, well, we're almost out of time for this first section. Is there anything else about feral cats that we should know?
Well, yeah, I'd really like to stress the fact that cats get out of control very, very quickly. To have one male and one female, especially if they aren't spayed and neutered, that is the biggest issue that we have to deal with. Population control has to be the individual responsibility.
Okay. We're going to take an early break, and when we come back, we have two guests that we will be talking to.
Well, we actually have more than two guests. We have 2 guests and 4 little furry guests.
Oh, 4 little furry guests. Okay.
So we have 6 guests.
We have 6 guests in total coming up after the break. This is You and Your Pets with Dr. Ernest Rogers. We'll be right back.
It is estimated that over 70 million stray and feral cats currently roam the streets, alleyways, and backyards of the United States. Furry Hearts Rescue believes that all cats deserve a safe and caring home. Feral cats arise from the throwaway cats that roam our streets, alleyways, fields, backyards, and school grounds in search of food and shelter. That's why Furry Hearts Rescue has devised, with Maplewood Township, the TNVR program, Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, Return. This will reduce the feral cat colonies without harming the cats themselves.
Virtually everyone in the field of feline welfare agrees that the number of cats born each year exceeds the number of homes available, and most of these kittens aren't coming from owned cats.
Therefore, it is essential that efforts to target the cat population will target the stray and feral cat colonies.
And there are tons of benefits from the TNVR, not only smaller feral cat colonies, fewer public nuisance problems, and the decreased shelter enthusiast rates.
But also, animal control costs will lower, there will be improved lives for stray and feral cats, and there will be more rabies shots administered. Let's fix this!
Welcome back to You and Your Pets with Dr. Ernest Rogers, our resident expert from Maplewood Animal Hospital. And we have some special guests, and Dr. Rogers, I would like you to introduce them, if you would, please.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Krista, I'm sorry, who has been a client for 10 years. A lot of years, and we've gone through a lot of cats together. And Christine, who's a member of Diane, I'm sorry, I'm not even getting that right.
My partner is Christine.
Diane, who is a member of Cause for Paws. They're both members of Cause for Paws. And their organization is one that, as we discussed in the previous segment, for feral cats and for hoarding situations, their organization is one that helps adopt out animals. And so this is what we're here for today. There's always a need for good homes for animals.
Yes.
And so, Diane, why don't you tell us, what is Cause for Paws?
Cause for Paws is a small all-volunteer rescue group. We are volunteers. There's about 6 core members at any given time, and 4 or 5 others that agree to foster cats and kittens and a few dogs, but we're mainly cat-focused, to foster the cats and kittens in their homes while we're looking for good permanent homes for them. So we're a small group, but we try to adopt out as many kitties as we can and rescue them off the streets and find them good homes.
And so your goal is really to try and stop the bleeding of animals that are being euthanized.
Exactly. Get them spayed and neutered and into good homes.
Right. But spayed, neutered, vaccinated.
Vaccinated, tested,
treated for fleas
healthy,
and tested.
yeah.
So anyone who decides to adopt an animal would be getting basically, depending on the age, a vaccine-appropriate, age-related vaccines, testing, and if possible, spayed.
Absolutely. We don't send them out until they're spayed and neutered for that very reason that you were talking about earlier.
Right. And so, Krista, we've had you, I've known you for years and years,
Yes.
and I like to think that we're friends.
Yes. Yep.
And every time I go to your house, there's another 3 cats. So tell me, how many cats have you fostered and given away?
I have fostered, I would say, between 30 and 40 cats over the years, starting with kittens that were newborn, less than 24 hours old. I have bottle fed them just like a baby, done everything that a mother would have to do with a newborn. And I've raised them to the point where they've been adopted. It's hard to let them go, but when I get a kitten, I say to myself, this is just for a little while. I enjoy them while they're at their funniest, at their smallest. So, I mean, all they want is love, food, and a place to stay.
So what do? You the younger ones, you end up bottle feeding?
Bottle feeding with the...
How often do you do that?
Well, it varies. Sometimes like 3 hours, and if they're real cranky or, you take them out and you talk to them for a little bit and you put them back. I have a heating pad. I have a very small carrier, a soft-sided carrier. I put a heating pad in, and usually lots of soft things like washcloths and blankets and so forth. So, and I do everything the mother would have to do. I mean,
you have to wipe their bottom to get them to pee and
That's
poop
right.
when they're
They
that
don't.
young.
Right, they don't go by themselves.
Keep them warm.
Yes.
Feed them milk. You make
Yes.
up the milk.
Yes, it's convenient. You can buy it dry, and you add the water to it, and so forth. You actually burp them like you would a baby, because they also swallow air with that when they're
Right,
drinking.
right.
So, but it's something that I don't think I want to give up.
So you take care of all their bodily functions. You get to
Yes.
spend time with them
Yes.
until they're in their terrible twos.
Exactly.
And then you get to give them to hopefully a nice family.
And I mean, I have all the equipment home. I have different crates and different sizes. So I have everything over the years. I've purchased that,
Yeah.
and so
Krista's become quite an expert.
Yes, yes. I've sent kittens to her from me as well. And you
Yes.
guys were kind enough to take them in.
yes.
So Diane, how many kittens do you think Cause for Paws has fostered? How long has it been in existence, and how long do you think you may have
We
fostered?
started officially in 1999, and on a good year, we'll rescue and place about 150 kittens and cats, adult cats as well. Kittens are, of course, easier to place than adult cats, but we do place our fair share of adult cats. Some years we've placed as many as 200, but I'd say average would be about 125 to 150. So for all those years, I
So
can't
that's-
do the math, but
Well,
It's
that's-
well over 1,000.
yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible, and they've all been successful?
As far as we know,
As far
we
as you
hope
know.
so. I mean, we do have some that get returned, and we have a contract that people sign when they adopt, and we say that after up to 6 weeks, we'll take them back, no questions
Right,
asked, and
right.
try to find them the home that's right for them. And then after that, we do take them back on a space available basis. We are a
Right,
small group, so
right.
we're kind of limited. But,
Right.
we never want, we've put a lot into them, a lot of love and attention and time and money, and we don't want them ending up in shelters or
Right.
outside, so we will take them back as soon
As
as we can,
available?
yes.
Right. And so all these cats that you've had going through, I have a question for Krista. How do you name these animals? I mean, every time I see you have different names for them.
Well, you're holding Vince.
This is Vince.
I
Vince
have,
is my little, and he's up for adoption. He's
Yes,
available for adoption.
absolutely. I have Warren, and Ursula just went
Yes.
back in her.
Ursula's getting a
Ursula
little
is
bit,
a little
Yes.
feisty.
Yes.
getting a little feisty.
So she just went back in there.
And so you end up naming them based on the litters, right? Alphabetically?
This particular, where these kittens are from, yes, we have named them alphabetically, and we are at the end of the alphabet now.
So we're going to be starting again.
So, but usually I get to choose the names. They come without names, and I choose the names, whatever I feel like they fit. So,
Oftentimes, we give them names based on where they came from. It sort of reminds us, when we look back at the contracts through the years, where they
Right,
came from,
right.
so.
yes, I've also lost kittens, and that's
You-
heartbreaking.
When they pass away.
Yes, there were two kittens that we did not know any history. They didn't come from Cause for Paws. They came from people that I know, and there was something wrong that we didn't know, and eventually they passed away. So,
Well, unfortunately, there is something called kitten fading syndrome,
yeah,
which we see often in animals as they transition from weaning to solid food. We often find that for no reason in particular, they might just pass.
yeah.
And that's a horrible loss. It's,
Oh,
it's hard on
that's
you,
so
it's hard on
sad.
the veterinarians, it's hard on the families.
So sad.
But these guys are up for adoption, and we'd like to have people call in. So where can they go to address these issues with you and look up your website?
We have a couple different places people can go. Our main place is our website, which is www.c4prescue.org, and we also have a Facebook page. Just look us up under Cause for Paws, and there's a link on the left-hand side of the page for all of the adoptable pets. Those are our two main places.
Are there pictures of these?
Yes, they're
Okay.
all. We try our best to keep the pet list up to date. Sometimes if you get adopted and it takes us a week or so to catch up, but it's pretty much up to date as best we can.
Okay. And so then, let's go into the adoption process specifically. How do you choose the families, or how do the families choose you, or how do the cats choose the people? It's a combination process. So how does that go about? If I wanted to adopt this cat, what would I have to do?
Well, once you knew the cat, presumably you either saw it, you came into a pet store where we were on a Saturday at an adoption event, or you saw the cat on the website or on the Facebook page, and you would either call. There's a number listed. My number, actually 3 volunteers have numbers listed, or you go to the website and it gives you a link, a tab for an adoption form that you fill out and it gets submitted to us. Also has our email addresses, so you can do it that way as well. So we try to make it user-friendly. And we usually either have a phone conversation or email, chat back and forth about what's your family situation like. Do you have little kids? Do you have older kids? Are you a single person? So we can try to match up, since they are fostered in our homes. We get to know the personalities. We know which cats are shy, which cats are outgoing, which ones get into trouble, which ones are,
They all get
feisty.
into trouble.
So we try to match people up that way and do the best we can, because we obviously don't want returns. We want people to be happy with their choice, and we want the cat to be happy with them.
And so once they've come in, they fill out a questionnaire or an application form. Is there an adoption fee?
There is an adoption fee. Right now, our adoption fee it's gone up slightly over the years, but right now it's $125, which for a cat that comes in healthy and stays healthy, that's just about exactly what we pay to have the spay and neuter done, the vaccinations, the leukemia and AIDS testing, deworming, defleeing, all that stuff. Doesn't include the food and stuff that we put in.
Right.
But it's the basic vet work is what we pay. And then That doesn't obviously reimburse us for the many kitties that get sick and need lots of extra vet care, which is obviously expensive.
Right.
But we do fundraisers for that, so.
So tell us about these fundraisers. I understand you have one coming up in November, is it?
November 13th is our annual, we call it a Tricky Tray basket raffle. It's at the Union Elks Club on Chestnut Street. It's at the 5 Points in Union.
Okay.
And we've been having that once a year for, I think, maybe 8 years now. And that's pretty much our big fundraiser. It makes us enough to at least pay about 6 to 8 months worth of vet bills, and our vets appreciate that we can catch up on our bills that way.
Right.
And then throughout the year, we have smaller, we go to street fairs. You might see us out at the local street fairs, craft fairs, things like that.
Right,
And then
right.
occasionally we'll send out a newsletter or a Facebook blast to try to raise money for a particular sick cat or something like
Right.
that.
We're running shy on time, and I wanted to get our other furry creatures in here
Yeah,
if we can.
there's one more.
Annie
We
is
have
here.
one more here to come.
Annie's a doll, but she is a little shy, so hopefully I can get her out carefully.
Want me to
Okay.
hold her?
Just bring her in.
Who's that?
Annie is an older kitty who came to us. A woman in Roselle Park called for help. Some cats she'd been feeding, and we took Annie and her brother in. Just recently got them spayed and neutered. She's a beautiful little girl, very sweet at
So
home.
she looks like she's about 3 or 4 months?
I think about 4 months based on her weight. But she's had all of her vet work. She's, as I said, a little shy here, but she's doing quite well. But at home, loves to be pet. She rolls over, she purrs, she comes up to me. She just wants love and attention, and I'm so happy that the woman that saved them took them out of this kind of messy parking lot that they were in a
Right.
sort of industrial area, and they didn't have much of a chance, and now they do.
Is that how you get most of your animals, from people
Phone
finding
calls,
them?
I found kittens in my backyard, can you help me? When, on the rare occasion that we do have room, we will rescue out of some of the local shelters that are, have high rates of euthanasia.
Right.
So we'll take them off their quote-unquote
Right.
euthanasia list and save them that way. But the majority of our kitties are phone calls about cats that have been found.
So then let's get your website and your telephone number and your name again, so that people who are interested in fostering or helping you foster or helping you adopt.
Adopt, foster, we can use all the help we can get.
So your name is
My
Diane.
name is Diane, this is Krista. My number is 908-377-4579, and the website again is www.c4prescue.org.
And that'll be put up on the screen, and we have these 4 lovely adoptees waiting for someone, and I'm sure you have others.
Oh, many, many others.
So thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having
And I'd
me.
like to
Thank
throw
you
it
for
back to
having
Mr. Horton.
Well, that was a very good show, and it was very delightful to have the furry critters with us. As we can see, they get no love at all, but it's nice to see them here. This has been You and Your Pets. I'm Jim Horton with our resident expert, Dr. Ernest Rogers. It's nice to have you with us, and see us the next time.
You've been a good sport since you're allergic to them. Take your Alibert.